The Francis Ngannou era of the heavyweight division has officially begun. I honestly believed in his ability to improve and adapt his game for this elite level, but even I was left surprised to at least some extent by just how good Francis looked in there on Saturday night. For this video, I'm going to give my thoughts on this major shift within the landscape of the heavyweight division, the performance of Francis Ngannou that brought it about, and of course, what the future holds for this electrifying talent. So let's get into it. Okay, to kick things off, how about that for a performance in the biggest fight of your career to date? I had hoped that Ngannou would be able to learn from his mistakes, that he would have been able to use the time given to him over the last 4 training camps to build himself into a better fighter, no matter how short the actual fights themselves were. And what we saw from Francis over the course of the round or so of action was a fighter who is beginning to nail down the type of approach that could well see him rule this division for a very, very long time. Heavyweight has been in something of an odd position in the last 5 or 6 years. Indeed, we are seeing progress, as the old is swept aside in favour of the new, and now with the promotional exits of both Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem, as well as the emergence of several new stars within the top 10, it does appear as though we're in the process of ushering in a new era. Francis looked incredible this time around. It was a performance that was befitting of the type of fighter who could successfully dethrone a man of Stipe's credentials, and it was a clear case of a mixed martial artist who had taken a healthy approach to their own past failures. Ngannou was composed from the opening bell, almost leaving Stipe surprised at his lack of output. Miocic for that first round watched patiently, waiting for the Francis of old to begin making the mistakes that cost him the belt at their first matchup at UFC 220, and yet those mistakes never came. Ngannou fought like a man who had full confidence in his abilities as a mixed martial artist. When the takedown threat came, he dealt with it smoothly, going one step further in solidifying his dominance over the situation by then taking Stipe's back and deftly scoring a takedown himself. That was a huge statement in a performance that was filled to the brim with huge statements. I predicted that Ngannou would win, both as a consequence of his own perseverance and the possibility of Stipe's eventual decline. And yet, when the fight was through, I had seen enough from Francis to really give him the full credit this time around. Perhaps if he did fight as we expected, if he ran in there throwing wild haymakers, then we'd see a repeat of his first shot at UFC gold. But for the most part, this man's terrifying athleticism and fight-ending power were the focus. The mental lapses and overall lack of experience didn't seem to be a factor anymore. This is a man who is now something of a veteran, and that confidence in his well-rounded skill set allowed him to fight the divisional GOAT in the manner that he did. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel now to keep the MMA dive train moving ahead. Andrei Arlovski, Alistair Overeem, Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Stipe Miocic. All of these fighters have now fallen by Ngannou's hand, and only Stipe managed to make it out of the first round. I think above all other things, what we're seeing here with Ngannou is the early stages of what has already been a legendary run through the sport. Say what you want about each of the fighters I listed and the points in the career they were at when Ngannou landed on them, I think we're seeing a major transitional period in the heavyweight division right now. And as far as I'm concerned, guys like Francis, guys like Ciryl Gane, these are the fighters who are clearing out the old to make way for the new. And when that final hammer blow fell on Stipe Miocic, as a career-long fan of his, I definitely found it to be a tough watch. I had backed Stipe to win every single fight he has contested up until this Ngannou rematch, and I do not think that this setback should detract from what he's been able to do over the years. But this is certainly the Ngannou era, and we're already seeing the public respond to him, his magnetism, and his uniquely incredible backstory. His well-timed appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast did wonders for giving us all a real glimpse into who the man behind that knockout blow actually is. And though he's not there yet, I can really see Francis Ngannou growing into a major star for the UFC. The narrative that surrounded his mentality and the terrible matchup against Derek Lewis are now in the past. We understand now that Francis had work to do, and through his title-winning efforts, we know that his overall arc has come full circle. So what do I want to see from the Predator next? Well, obviously, if they can get Jon Jones to the table, they absolutely should. I'll probably make a video on the subject of Ngannou versus Jones in the near future to properly give my take on that fight, its meaning, and the potential pitfalls that may deprive us of it. But for now, I certainly do believe that Jones is the best fight on paper for the sport, for the division, and for the parties involved. If that fails, give him Derek Lewis before throwing Miocic in there again. I do love a good trilogy fight as much as the next man, but Stipe should consider some time off after this major setback. If he can get back into the swing of things with the win and make the rematch a compelling proposition, then great. But even with their terrible first fight in mind, I think the Black Beast Derek Lewis is the man who should take on Francis next, if Jon Jones is in fact unable to come to an agreement with the UFC brass. It's not often these days that a champion rises to the belt and is instantly seen as such a long-term problem for those within his weight class. But for me, knowing that that Francis's power has now been augmented with a more solid foundation, both skill-wise and mentally, that's enough to make me quite confident about his future as the baddest man on the planet. But who do you think the newly crowned heavyweight champion should face next? And what did you think about Ngannou's dominant victory over the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time in Stipe Miocic? Do you think that the UFC will pay Jon Jones enough to make him return for a crack at the heavyweight belt? Do let us know in the comment section below. Let's get a discussion going. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.